Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video and the first mock draft that I've done on the channel this season. So this one, I'm just going to be using Fantasy Pros Mock Draft Simulator. A pretty good simulator, actually. Does a good job of giving you a lot of ability to iterate. It's always fun to do drafts with real people as well, but those generally take a lot longer, and you're not going to get as much information. And especially earlier on, I find that it's just good to sort of get some initial drafts done using just against the computer. It's generally pretty accurate based off of current ADPs. For this one, I'm going to try and mix it up, of course, throughout the course of the season. I'm going to be doing probably a mock snake draft and a mock auction draft at least once a week. So that'll be 2 videos a week for you just that are going to be mock drafts along with the usuals. So stay tuned for all those. There's going to be a lot of these. In this one specifically, I'm going to be doing a half PPR snake draft in a 12-team format. We're going to randomize our draft pick here. We got the 8th pick, so that's fun. We're going to be using 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and a flex. I've removed kickers and defenses just because we don't really care about that. I'll touch on defenses later on in the offseason, but don't need to be worried about that too much right now. And then we'll do 5 bench spots just to have a little bit of depth, but we don't need to go too deep here. Other things you can do that are kind of nice, you can sort of boost the positional value of different things. I tend to find that it's good to at least boost rookies. Generally when you get into your snake draft, we see rookies go a little bit higher than ADP. And quarterbacks, especially in home league, you tend to see those go a little bit earlier as well. So good things to boost there. And yeah, let's get started here. So we're starting up the draft. We're at the 8th spot. So in the first 7 picks, we saw go pretty chalk here. We saw Jamar Chase go. A little weird. We saw Christian McCaffrey go 102. He has certainly been climbing, so that could certainly happen. Got Bijan at 103, Saquon 104, Jefferson, Lamb, then Gibbs. That puts us in kind of a rough spot, honestly. Typically, I find that you really want to be looking at tier-based rankings here. You don't want to be the first person to take a player from a new tier. And unfortunately, we're sort of stuck doing that here at the 108. I think that you got your clear top 3 wide receivers in Jefferson, Lamb, and Chase, and then your clear top 3 running backs in Saquon, Bijan, and Gibbs. So after that, you've got really at the pick 7 spot, you kind of find yourself in a bit of a tough spot. Christian McCaffrey, it's sort of you could maybe consider him a tier 1 guy. You could consider him much lower. So a little bit tough here. Honestly, the next highest player on my board in a half PPR format would be probably Puka Nacua. I think he's the receiver that's the left available here that has the best shot at being the most relevant, but also we certainly will be looking at playing ADP here. Basically, it's picking at pick 8. We're also going to be picking at pick 15. So we take a look at, or pick 16 actually. So if we take a look at that, let's get a look at like Drake London, Brock Bowers. Looking at the running back position, we'd really be hoping that Devon Achane or Derrick Henry slips to us, and that won't happen. In a 3 wide receiver, 1 flex build, you can feel pretty good about starting wide receiver, but it's generally good to at least try and split the first 2 draft picks if you can. I don't think we're going to have that option here, so I think we're going to have to take Puka to start. He's just the best player on the board. If you wanted to go Amon-Ra or Neighbors, I have no problem with that as well. Amon-Ra, the super safe pick, but I think in full PPR, that's where I'd go that route. So in half PPR, we're going to go Puka. We'll take him. After that, we see Gianti. We obviously, after that, saw Neighbors, Amon-Ra, Nico, London, Brian Thomas, Derrick Henry, and Devon Achane. So again, no luck here. We're right here at pick 17. Looking at a bit of a tough spot here. So you've got Brock Bowers, who's the best player on the board, shown there. I don't really see a distinction very significantly between him and Trey McBride, so I don't typically want to be the first player to take a tight end. I'd much rather get the value at Trey McBride there. So I don't love that draft pick. Jonathan Taylor, I'm actually really excited about this season. I think he's a potentially great pick here, and it does give us a lot of flexibility going forward just because he's a later it allows us to split up those first 2 draft picks. So it gives us a lot of flexibility there. I think Jonathan Taylor is sort of where I'm leaning. If I were going to go wide receiver, it would be A.J. Brown, but I'm just a little bit hesitant. It's not going to be a super high volume passing offense. If you look at the back half of last year, he really did slow down quite a bit. I think there's more upside with some other players there, so I don't love drafting A.J. Brown here, and I think I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable if I split and go Jonathan Taylor. Bowers is tempting, but again, I just don't want to be the first person to take a tight end. Rule of thumb, if you can avoid being the first person to take a positional tier or a player from a new tier in a position, it helps to do that, and that means that if you're taking the first tight end off the board and you think that there are 3 or 2 that are about the same, you could include Kittle if you want, but I think it's a clear tier 1 of Brock Bowers and McBride. You probably are getting the better deal if you're taking them second, so I'd prefer not to do that. We're going to take Jonathan Taylor here and see how things shake out from there. So after Taylor goes, we saw a lot of players come off the board. Obviously, we saw Lad McConkey, Brock Bowers, AJ Brown, Jacobs, Irving, Kenneth Walker. That's a little bit early for Kenneth Walker going in round 2. Kyron, McBride early round 3. Josh Allen, Chase Brown, Lamar Jackson, JSN, T Higgins, and Jaden Daniels at 307. So if we're taking a look here, top player on the board supposedly here is going to be Tyreek Hill. I'm more optimistic about Tyreek Hill after the trade of Johnny Smith. That does certainly raise the ceiling for sure and gives us a lot more opportunity here. But if I were going to take a wide receiver here, my top player on the board looking at this would actually be Rashee Rice. I just think he's far and away the best wide receiver in Kansas City right now. I did a video just a little bit ago on some busts. I had Xavier Worthy marked as a bust, and also had Travis Kelce marked as a bust. And a lot of that's just because I think that Rashee Rice is by far the number one target in this offense. If you look at sites like Underdog, not a perfect representation of redraft, but you're seeing Rashee Rice go early in the second, or early in the third, late in the second. This is a late third round pick. That's a really great value right here. I'm going to feel really good about taking Rashee Rice. If I weren't going to do that, the best running back on the board here, honestly, not a whole lot of value. My top running back left would actually be Chuba. That's a really significant reach, so I can't do that. George Kittle, certainly tempting here. I think there's a case to be made for him to be a tier 1 guy, but I'm just a little bit too early for me to be taking George Kittle. Quarterback, Hurts is at least in consideration, but that would be more of something if I was going to go for a stack if I had done A.J. Brown. Don't want to do that, so I think if we look at everything here, I think that Rashee Rice is going to be the best pick, and that's who we're going to take. So after that, we obviously have a lot of players go off the board again. You have, right after we picked, you saw Breece Hall, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Hurts, Terry McLaurin, James Cook, Devonta Smith, and then Mike Evans. We're on the board here again, and this is where it gets really interesting. So we were obviously considering George Kittle along with Garrett Wilson there in the last pick. If we were going to make a selection that's not running back, I would certainly like to target either one of those two players. George Kittle, a guy I'm super excited about this season. He was the tight end 1 in fantasy points per game last season. You got a healthier offense in general, supposedly, this season, so you should have elevated touchdown upside. Kittle's just a superstar. He's one of the best tight ends in the NFL. He's not quite at that age cliff yet for the tight end position. I believe he's entering his age 32 season here. So George Kittle's a guy that I think could easily be a really great value in drafts this season. Garrett Wilson, typically I don't like his ADP. You normally see him going early in the third, but this is like the middle of the fourth, so I think that's a pretty good value if we wanted to target that. Marvin Harrison Jr., another guy that I love quite a bit. I've maybe been a little bit too high on him in the past. Obviously, last season I was too high on him, but this year I think there's a lot of room for improvement. And if we just take a look at our roster so far, we've got Puka, Jonathan Taylor, Rashee Rice in a 3 wide receiver and a flex draft spot. There's a case to be made that you honestly want to draft 5 really solid wide receivers because you're going to play 5 of them over the course of the season for sure. Getting Marvin Harrison makes me feel really good. I miss passing up on George Kittle's tough there, but I think Marvin Harrison is the best guy to grab here. We're going to go with him. He's the best wide receiver on the board for me. It's him or Garrett Wilson, but I just think there's a lot more upside associated with him. So it's going to be Marvin Harrison here, and we'll see how things shake out from there. So after Marvin Harrison goes, we saw Garrett Wilson, obviously. He was the clear pick there. Then you had Hampton, Kittle, Connor, DJ Moore. We got Mixon and Kamara. A bit of a run at wide receiver between DK, Jameson Williams, Tedero McMillan, and Cortland Sutton. And then you got Quinshawn Judkins, RJ Harvey, and Travis Hunter. So a few rookies go off the board here. So now if we look at our team, we've got 3 receivers, 1 running back. My top running back on the board, I mentioned it several picks ago, it was going to be Chuba Hubbard, and he's still available. So that's certainly incredibly enticing here. We're through the tier 1 at tight end. Obviously, with George Kittle gone, I keep mentioning it. I don't want to be the guy to take the first player in a new tier, so I'm not going to be taking Sam Laporta here. If I wanted to go wide receiver again, there's not a whole lot of players that I'm super excited about. Jalen Waddle would probably be, or George Pickens would probably be my favorite pick left here. It's kind of a reach for either of those guys. I said we're not going to go tight end. If we wanted to go quarterback, it would be Joe Burrow. Typically, if I'm taking Burrow, because I want to stack him with a guy like Higgins or Jamar Chase. Don't have the opportunity to do that here, so we're going to go with Chuba Hubbard, a guy that I'm really excited about this season. I think people are just underappreciating how good he is, and a guy that I think is going to return a lot of value. So we'll go Chuba here. Moving forward, we got Zay Flowers, Travion Henderson, David Montgomery, Caleb Johnson, Ridley, Laporta, Burrow, and then Baker. So we're back here to us. DeAndre Swift's available. I've been pretty vocal about how excited I am about him this season. We do probably want to leave this draft with at least 3 running backs that we feel decent about, and really you kind of run out of those right after DeAndre Swift in my mind. So that's something to consider. You only need to start two, and Warren and Chuba are a really great start. So I'm okay with that where we're sitting right here. Patrick Mahomes, interesting, but not someone I'm going to go with. I think typically here, again, we're into a new tier at the quarterback position after Burrow. So like you've got Baker, Bo Nix is great. Kyler is a guy that I'm super excited about, and I have Marvin Harrison. So that's certainly something I'd be considering for a stack. Patrick Mahomes stacking with Rashee Rice, also a strong consideration here. So we could consider that, but it's just, again, you're kind of entering a new tier. I don't think there's a huge difference between Kyler and Mahomes this season, so I'd rather just wait and get the value later. So I think looking at our roster here, we're kind of torn between either. So it's either going to be DeAndre Swift, who's my best running back left on the board, and then at wide receiver, there's quite a few. There's George Pickens, who I love. Really, I love this tier of wide receiver. Like all four of Waddle, Olave, Godwin, and Pickens are guys that I love. If I'm in an auction draft, I'm probably targeting all four of those guys in drafts because you can actually do that in an auction draft. So I love this tier of player. We're probably not going to have any of them available to us at our next pick, to be entirely honest. Um, maybe one or two of them gets back to us at the next pick, but I don't think so. And we do want to have four really good wide receivers in this format where we've got three wide receivers and a flex in half PPR. So I think I want to take the best wide receiver on the board. For me, that's going to be George Pickens. Just a ton of weekly upside here. Waddle's a strong consideration as well, but I think George Pickens is just in a better offense here, and we're more certain about what Dallas is going to be on offense than we are with Miami. And I just think there's a really strong chance that George Pickens goes out there and balls out this season. So I like him. We're going to take George Pickens there. Moving forward from that, big bummer. We saw Kyler come off the board right before our next pick, so that's a bit of a frustrating pick there. I was hoping to pair him with Kyler here, but that's okay. Still plenty of options. If we look at the full draft board here, Bo Nix, really great draft pick actually where he is. I think that's sort of, again, if you look at the quarterback position, he's the last quarterback in this tier. And a guy that obviously has a ton of upside with how mobile he is, so he's a strong consideration for us in this spot. Running back, if we want to go there, pretty significant tier drop after Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson is a really nice guy to have on your roster just because you know he's going to have a reliable role in a good offense. So that's certainly something we could look at. You're never going to get super excited about drafting Brian Robinson, but he's also a guy that's probably going to return value and be good for you. So that's certainly something we can look at wide receiver. We can sort of shoot for upside now because we've got the four guys that are probably starting for us week one. Rome Odunze certainly unlocks some upside, as does Juwan Jennings. Ricky Pearsall is a strong consideration as well here. So, same with Jaden Reed if we wanted to. I like Jacoby Myers a lot as well. A lot of options at receiver, but I think we sort of entered like a really big tier at the position, and it's not something that I really want to target, especially now that we already have four. At tight end, I think we're sort of past the point where I'm super excited about any of these guys. Honestly, I'm probably just targeting a guy like Tyler Warren and then like maybe Chig Okonkwo late. So, looking at this, it's either Brian Robinson or Bo Nix. I think I really want to grab Bo Nix. I think there's 9 quarterbacks that I'm really excited about this season, Bo Nix being the last of them. And then after that, there's like a whole tier of like 10 guys, like Fields through Bryce Young even is pretty reasonable for your starting quarterback week one. So I think Bo Nix is the end of a tier here. Being able to get him as a value, he's going to be a rock solid guy for us and someone that I'm going to feel really good about. So we'll go Bo Nix here. A couple picks go through. We're not going to take another quarterback the entire rest of the draft unless there's a huge value later. I'm looking at this. David Njoku is certainly interesting. If we want to add a receiver here, we've got Rome and Myers would be my top two probably. Reed's interesting. But yeah, Rome and Myers would be my two favorite options available here. We just want to take a look at tight end. Travis Kelce's available. Still too early for me, honestly, and I already have Rashee Rice, so I'm not going to double dip there. Evan Ingram is interesting because it gives me a stack, and I don't mind stacking my tight end with my quarterback. It gives me a lot of upside, and Evan Ingram certainly does have a path towards being super fantasy relevant. But it's a little bit early. He won't make it back to me, but I'm okay with the risk because I'm so high on a guy like Tyler Warren that I think I can wait if I have to. There's 3 tight ends on the board or 2 ahead of him, so it's possible that Ingram makes it back to me. Not all these teams need tight ends. You've got Kittle taken, Hawkinson, and McBride. So really only 3 of these teams between me need a tight end. They would all 3 need to take one here for me to miss out. So I feel okay about that. I think I want to take a shot on a lot of upside at the wide receiver position. I think it's going to be Rome here. It just unlocks a ceiling that a lot of the guys left on the board don't have. So we'll do that. We'll take Rome. Let's see if we get lucky. And we did. Not a single tight end went off the board. So now we get to be a little bit interesting. If we look at this here, Only team 10 doesn't have a tight end, so we can feel pretty good again about there being a tight end coming back around. Of course, these guys could take two tight ends, but it's worth taking that risk, I think, if there's someone else that we're excited about. So looking at the positions here, really interesting. I'm really big on Josh Downs. He's someone I can get behind. We're pretty thin at running back still. We only have two. Jordan Mason going one pick before us is kind of rough, but I'm actually really excited about Tajay Spears this season. I think there's a really clear path towards him potentially being like the 1B in that Titans offense. He's just a more efficient player on a per touch basis than Pollard. If Pollard were to go down, he's getting older. You could certainly see Tajay Spears put up a monster season. So I think Spears is where I'm leaning here. It's a bit of a reach actually to do that. But at the running back position, things get getting thin really quick here, and I want to have a guy that I could at least feel confident in starting if I needed to. So I think Tajay Spears is going to be the draft pick here. We're going to hope Evan Ingram makes it to us with the next pick. And he did. Crazy to see Travis Kelce on the board in round 10. Still not going to do it because I don't have Mahomes and I already have Rashee Rice, so I'm not going there. We're going to go Evan Ingram here, and I still hope I can pair him with Tyler Warren. But Evan Ingram gives us a nice stack with Bo Nix. Makes me feel pretty good about that. So, and then that is brutal. So to start round 11, we saw 7 straight running backs go off the board. We were already worried about our running back position. Not a great thing to look at here, but I think there's still some value to be had. J.K. Dobbins, probably clearly the best pick available on the board here at the running back position. The only problem a little bit is that does give us a lot of exposure to the Broncos offense. Not necessarily something we want to avoid, but it's not something that I'm super excited about either. So just got to keep that in mind. Sucks we saw Tyler Warren go like 2 picks after us. Makes sense with the rookies being bumped up here, so I'm okay with that. Again, we don't want to go quarterback again. If we wanted to late, we could look at a guy like J.J. McCarthy or something, but I don't think we need to do that. At running back, it's really gross. I think Dobbins is still probably the best pick here, even though it's going to give us a lot more Broncos than I really want. Because outside of him, nobody here has a clear role. Like Braylon Allen maybe has a role. Marshawn Lloyd's a guy that I think is going to be pretty solid this year, but he's not going to be super fantastic unless something happens to Jacobs. At receiver, there's certainly some options here. I'm a big fan of a guy like Trey Harris. Cedric Tillman's got a lot of upside. I like Kyle Williams. Tight end, nobody else really getting me super excited. We could go Kincaid if we wanted to double dip. A little bit too early though. Like I love Chigakonkwo and he's going super late, so we can wait on that. I think we've got to sort of start peppering our roster with some running backs because we're sort of all in on Taylor and Chuba. Spears being our RB3 is certainly a potential weak point here. We're going to take Dobbins. I know it's a lot of Broncos, but if Dobbins pans out and has a clear role, at least that's something we could trade even if we needed just to swap him for a running back from a new team. So I'll take the best value on the board there. Again, running back continue to go off the board. We saw 6 go off the board. 7. Yeah, 7 running backs go off the board in the next 6 picks. Rough looking at this here. Looking at these guys, we're looking for somebody that has a clear role in the offense. It's not really looking like that's available. Justice Hill is a guy that we could always play in a pinch. So it's something we can certainly look at if we want to. Dalton Kincaid still being there is interesting for sure, but again, I think there's a lot of value to be had still. At receiver, let's see, we've got just 2 more rounds left in this draft. So having 4 running backs right now, and we've got 5 receivers. We probably want to leave with 1 more running back and 1 more wide receiver. I think Justice Hill is the last running back here. Maybe Kareem Hunt. It's kind of gross, but he does clearly have a role in this Chiefs offense. The dude was clearly the goal line back and got used on 3rd down some last season, so it's possible he's got a role. But you got Elijah Mitchell there. There's just a lot of names there. It's tough to know how that's going to pan out. I think I'll go Justice Hill, get myself 1 more running back that I can start if I need to. And then we're going to probably just take the best wide receiver on the board at our next pick. Looking at this, Marquise Brown's an option, but I'm actually really big on Trey Harris this season. I've talked about him a little bit already, but I think he's a really talented player. He's like basically going to immediately be what Mike Williams was for them for years. So I like Trey Harris a lot. We're going to take him. We close out the draft there. Gives us an 82 out of 100. Kind of fun to see a draft grade there always. I think that's about fair. Looking at this, I think there's a pretty clear weakness in the roster at running back. Just to read you guys the full roster, we've got Bo Nix at quarterback. At running back, we have Jonathan Taylor and Chuba Hubbard to start the lineup with. And then on our bench, we only have Spears, Dobbins, and Justice Hill. It's pretty clearly the weakest part of the roster. I like JT and Chuba quite a bit as a 1-2 punch, but there's certainly a room a path towards an injury, they're really derailing our season. So that's something to be concerned about looking at this roster. A wide receiver, I feel really stacked. We've got Puka, Rice, Marvin Harrison Jr., and George Pickens. And even on the bench, you've got Rome Odunze and Trey Harris. So really strong wide receiver group. It's certainly what we want to target in a 3 wide receiver flex format with half PPR scoring. And then Evan Ingram at tight end in a PPR format, really great. Also gives us a stack with Knicks. So I like this team. I'd feel good about it going out of the draft, but I think there's certainly at least a potential for some problems if we have an injury at the running back position. So let me know how you guys think I did. If you guys want to see more videos like this, if you have any specific mock drafts you want to see, let me know in the comments below. I'll make sure I try and fulfill all those requests as I can throughout the course of the summer. Going to be a lot of fun. Going to be doing a lot more drafts over here over the next several weeks and several months, honestly, as we get closer and closer to draft season, and just super stoked for all this. So if you want to make sure you don't miss any future mock drafts or other videos coming out over the next several weeks and months, there will be at least 3 videos a week, probably more, honestly, with all the mock drafts we'll be doing every single week coming out until the football season starts. Then we'll have even more during the regular season. Just make sure you subscribe so that way you don't miss any of that. And if you like this video, if you like the team, give me a thumbs up. Helps me out and just lets me know that you guys know I'm doing a good job and all that. So yeah, appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you at the next one. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.